Welcome to Black Pod, the Black Pod. Take two. Welcome to Black Pod, the podcast for everyday people. A podcast that talks to people who've made an impact in their own lives. Dragons, phoenixes, people who rise and make a change in their own communities. Today, we are really blessed to have Lebohang Joanne Setlalekgosi on our podcast with lots of stories to talk about, a lifetime of, a young life, actually, of triumph. Lebo, welcome to Black Pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, you know, I've always wondered how I introduce people, right? I've had this little cadence that I've been doing, but I've been playing it in my own mind of how I'm going to do it. Because weirdly enough, we've been speaking for months on end, but we've only actually seen each other in person today.
For the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah.
So welcome, really.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
A little bit about yourself. I know, but I guess
yes. So as you said, my name is Lebohang Joanne. When it's full, it's Lebohang. The Lebo stands for Lebohang, and yes, I am a marketer, a brand strategist in her 30s, because a woman never reveals her real age, and yes, today's topic is very close and dear to my heart. It's one of my biggest tribulations I've been dealing with from such a young age. I guess the viewers will get to know as we speak. But yes, I'm looking forward to really unpacking it and sharing my side of the story about it, yes.
So when I thought about today, right, I kept on having Maya Angelou's Still I Rise coming to my mind, right? Someone so young, having dealt with so much, and yet you rise and rise and rise, and your personality comes through in that, I want to call it a quiet strength that sits within you. Somebody who's suffered quite a bit of loss over time. I think as we tell the story of rising and talking to that rise, maybe we start off at family, how you grew up, where, and then we take the journey in terms of talking to that loss and the triumph.
Growing up, I had a really, really great childhood. I grew up in Lesotho. That's where mom is from. And, I had such a beautiful childhood. My mom had 3 children. I had a brother and a younger sister. I'm the middle child. Also queen of the castle, deputy parent, self-proclaimed. I think it's important that I was like, Kinna, deputy parent. I'm the first daughter, So right through my childhood, it was great. I had a brother, I had a sister. I lived with my mom and my grandparents, who are very, very dear to me. That was my childhood. It was very great. I was life of the party, So like you were saying, my personality really is bold and loud. I think it really started from as far as I can remember. Like when I was young, I was that child. My mom had to calm me down every 5 minutes. Like, don't you want to relax a bit? Because she was a very chilled person. And I was like, asking 10 questions within a minute. And she's just like, okay, don't you just want to slow down and let's give it time? I need to still digest your first 7 questions. We'll get to the other 3. Can I just watch The Bold and the Beautiful in days? And then you and I can really have a chat about. So yeah, so that is just a brief picture of the kind of child. Yes, I was really close with my grandparents, spent a lot of time with my granddad. It was a typical, he used to be the one to pick me up from school. And yes, I'd come home to a younger sister who was really, really attached. So yeah.
It's interesting when people talk about their childhoods, they generally don't talk about, I had a great childhood. Right?
Yeah.
When you ask people about who they are, where they come from, there's always a starting off from a place of struggle and then perhaps driving it forward. In this instance, we're starting from a place of happiness.
Yeah.
And wholesomeness. And I think when you have grandparents as well that are creating that family structure, we talk about different family structures generally now because there's this understanding that, mom, dad, 2 kids and a picket fence. But here you're going, my grandparents were
part of the mix.
Yes. Part of the mix. Your mom, what was her name?
Her name was Mpho. Her name was Mpho, meaning gift, which is very interesting because with my other siblings, she named us according to her character and her beliefs.
Okay.
So Lebohang being be grateful. My younger sister's name is Larato, meaning love. And my brother's name is Tumelo, meaning faith. So she kind of made sure that our names are very tied to who she really is as a gift, to what she believed was a gift to the world and to her family and close friends, yes.
So we speak of your mom in past tenses.
Yes.
So when did your mom pass away?
Yeah.
And, take me through that and how old you were.
Oh, okay. So I like how you shaped the whole, usually childhood starts from, an unhappy setup and then, people like sort of navigate their way into happiness.
Yeah.
And mine started happy.
Yeah.
But that happiness was sort of, right in the smack of my childhood. Yeah. Or rather, I was already like, progressing slowly into my teens because I lost my mother when I was 12.
Sure. That's a young age.
I was 12, but I was already in high school. I know.
You were already
yes, I was in grade 8 because back in the day, the pop-up ones. So I was in grade 8 and her loss completely turned my world around. Was not expecting it. She had been sick for some time, a good, 2-3 years. But, you're a child. Never, death is not, in your mind. You always believe, okay, she's getting the best care. She's seeing the best doctors and, she's in a really good hospital. Naturally, your expectation is she's going to get better. And I remember 2 weeks before she died, she came to see me in boarding school because I was in a boarding school. And I still vividly remember how she looked and how she spoke to me.
Yeah.
I mean, she was really tired and she was just trying to, from the conversation we had, I could see that this was her way of saying goodbye.
Okay.
But for me, it was, I had so much hope that I didn't see it I didn't view it as a goodbye at the time. For me, it was just my mom coming to see me in school because, ever since I've been there, she had only visited me twice because she had been hospitalized. Yeah. So I was really excited to see her and just say, oh my God, thank you for bringing me to the school and thank you for everything you've done for me. And she just cried. And I guess at the time for her, it was like, Ish, you know what? I just came to see if this hand is sorted so that I can just bow out. Yeah. Another very important part regarding her death is that this year is her 25th year anniversary of her passing. Mm-hmm. And that was 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And for me to be able to narrate the story without crying is such a big deal because, with loss, you think okay, I got this.
Yeah.
It's been 25 years. Obviously, I've learned to deal with it because the saying that you don't deal with loss.
Yeah.
The pain doesn't go away. You learn to live with the pain. Like it's a permanent resident of your life. It's never gonna go away. You befriend it on some yeah, what's up today? Please don't hurt me too much. Or your easy triggers.
Yes.
You try not to get triggered, or you learn to live with the triggers as well, because they come and go. And the way I act now about something, a question you can ask me today, I could answer profoundly, but someone can ask me tomorrow and it would completely break me apart. Yes.
When we have, I'm a mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of loss, I can't imagine what loss looks like for a child, and what loss looks like when you don't have those questions to somebody to ask, or that person to ask, and how you carry the journey forward. But you speak about your grandparents as being people who were there. Yes, you were in a boarding school, which I'm assuming is actually hard as a kid whose mom now passes away.
Yeah.
How do your grandparents then fill up that space for you? Because I think when you are dealing with loss, you sort of also need someone or something or someone to hold space for you. How do you deal with that at that age?
Right. So my grandparents, they did such an impeccable job. I mean, I still, I still can't fathom how they did it. Because, they are going through a loss.
Yes.
They lost their only child.
Their only child.
Only child. Okay. And there had always been a unit. They always went everywhere together. That is why we were even part of the mix of their home. We were just an addition to
to what was already existing.
We doubled up their space, basically. But they managed to close that gap in such a flawless way. Like, I will always be grateful to the kind of love and the kind of support my grandparents gave us. Before my mom's death, right up until, like, they did it 180%. Yeah, like, if anything, I used to tell them all the time once I got older, you know what, thank you.
Yeah.
Because people around us would look at us and they wouldn't see loss of a mother. They wouldn't, to some degree. I went back to school. Yes, it was hard. I lost my mom. I mean, I was really tight with my mom.
Yeah.
But my grandmother was there. Yes, the age gap now.
Yes. Hey,
listen, I didn't stop. My grandmother was like, and she managed to still navigate. I mean, naturally, that's the other thing, because I could see that she was also really broken.
Yes.
She lost her child,
yes.
her only child. I also needed to step up.
Yes.
You know,
in a way. Okay.
In a way.
Is this where you decide to be deputy parent?
Yes. Childhood, that's where childhood stopped for me. Not entirely. I'll give context. So then you guys don't think, chewena. But, I felt that my grandmother needed the support of, there's another child. I have a younger sister who doesn't know what's going on. She was also very, very, very attached to my mom. She had a very, very strong relationship with my mother. And, she was my mother's golden kid. The excessively beautiful one from birth. Last born. She had like best of the best. While some of us were here like, Rona! She was like, Angel, hey. Just come. And, I had to then remember that she's just attached to me.
Yes.
And I have to give the same kind of support to her.
Yeah.
She would need it more than I need it.
Yeah.
So naturally, the deputy parent snapped right in. Yeah.
Okay.
Right
So
in.
you grow up, grandma, grandpa.
Yes.
When do they pass away?
You see that one. That one, you know, I always say that my mom's death hit me really hard. But I guess, I mean, my mom's death, my dad also died in the mix, like when I was in my 20s. But I always took death as it came, knowing that I can always lean on my grandparents. Yeah. That's how it was. Yeah. Okay, no, my grandparents are dead. I'll be okay. So when they left, I had this negative, like white space. Yeah. We call it negative space in creative and photography and stuff. Like I just had this whole blank canvas now. Yeah. And I'm just right in the middle. I'm just alone. And I'm just like, oh my God, what now? Like I never imagined what life would be without my grandparents. Yeah. Though I knew it was coming. Okay. Because naturally, Baba Holo, you know, they've aged, they've lived their lives, they've done everything they can for their child and their grandchildren. To adulthood, go fail. So I wouldn't expect them to be there for the rest of my life. But if I had it my way, I would have preferred to go than
stay.
And have them leave me behind. Yeah. No.
There's a thing about death and loss and highway. You can't get used to it, right? It's this idea that yes, you accepted that they were older and that they were going to go, but you couldn't, it's not something that comes and you go, okay, I accept it today, this is what it is. But it also shapes how you then articulate yourself to the rest of the world. Does it not? Does it not create in that void, in that negative space? How do you then maneuver life? I mean, you still have to go on, right? You still have to wake up and do something and eat and feed yourself. Or does that become a point of depression where you're like completely just out?
It was so bad because, like I said, you know, they left me and they left me at the same time. Like with their death, I had 5 months to deal with both their deaths. My grandmother died first around this time, actually, in 2018. Okay. And then my granddad died 5 months later. And those were probably the two deaths that, like, I will never, ever heal from. Ever.
But then when you talk about, and I wanna bring you back, right? Because it's hard to go to the abyss. They left me, but they raised you, right? And they brought you to a particular place. And they paved the way.
They did.
And I don't know if it's completely left you.
No, they didn't.
They didn't leave you.
No, I mean, as much as they did everything, they owe me absolutely nothing. They were there for me and they basically, you know, they raised me from the ground up and made sure that by the time they left, I have everything that I needed. Yeah. I mean, they died the same year I got married. Oh. So I remember my grandmother saying to me, I can go now because you have a spouse, girl. And you know, it is what it is. But it's time for me to go, girl. It's time for me to go.
How old was she?
She was in her 70s. So, yeah, I'm usually so good with ages. But she was born in 1943, so she died in 2018. So yeah, she was in her 70s. Yeah.
And granddad?
He was also in his 70s.
Yeah.
He was born in 1941.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've been age mates.
They were like the best of friends. I mean, naturally, he died 5 months later. He just couldn't take it. For him, it was, she's no longer here. And I really prefer to be where she is.
Yeah.
And that was the conversation I had to deal with for 5 months I had with him.
Yeah.
Like I was really close to my grandparents. Yeah. But now I had to be even closer to him. I didn't allow myself to break properly with my grandmother.
With your grandmother.
Because of him.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was there right till my grandmother died. Sure. Like she took her last breath and I was right there. And I had to pretend that she's still alive for his sake. I know. Like the night she died, she told us that she's going, made us call her pastor, and told her pastor that it's time. Her time is here. Does my granddad acknowledge that she has to go? And he said yes. And she was like, okay, call Lebohang. And I got there and she, like minutes later, she died.
Sure.
And that moment, I had to pretend. And my granddad was like, you need to rush her to the hospital, Lebohang.
Yeah.
Take her out of bed and drive her to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm the same girl.
Yes.
I can't even shed a tear in that moment. I have to pretend for his sake because that's how close they were. Okay, no. But now I'm asking myself, how am I have to be the same person who has to deliver this to him from this so-called hospital. Actually, I'm so sorry. I have to be the same person. So yes, I did, with the help of a neighbor turned sister. Yes. She helped me take her from the bed into the car and I drove from her house to the hospital.
So you went to the hospital?
Oh, no, I did. I did. Did not cry the entire time. She's in the car with me. Yeah. Asante gives her strength. Yeah. And like for things that you don't know, you'd be ever, like if someone told me that I'd have to do that. Yes. I would have said
like now, if they said, okay, Lebo.
Or even then, if someone said, do you know you have to do ABC? I'd be like, you're joking. I wouldn't have the strength to do that. Yes. But I managed to do that. And I believe it's also part of the kind of woman they raised me to be. The kind of strength I need to have to navigate those kind of triumphs and trials. So, I drove. I got to the hospital, and a doctor I knew very well declared her like dead on arrival. And only then I broke apart. But still, I had this big task ahead of me that I still had to go back home and tell my granddad that she's no more. Yeah. And I couldn't allow myself to break apart. I had to be strong for him. Yeah. Because naturally, that's a dagger for him. Yeah. And I didn't really mourn her properly because I still have a younger sister that I still have to be there for and an older brother, you know. So there was no time for me to fall apart. Okay. There was no time for me to fall apart. There's still a funeral that has to come. Things need to be done. Yeah. There's no time for me to cry. Yeah, obviously I cried at home, but it was very short-lived. I cry, I sleep for 3 hours, I'm up and running errands for the funeral. So big girl panties. There's no time to big girls don't cry.
Well, they do. They just have to find a moment.
Yeah, I mean, like growing up, that was the term. Yeah. Now we've kind of shifted it because, we have to be compassionate and stuff. But
the rules change.
Yes, rules change.
A lot more in tune with what it needs to happen to actually get over things. And
yes.
wellness or mental wellness or support becomes much more important.
Yeah.
So granddad, grandma passes away.
Mm.
There's a moment to fall apart. Right? You do find that moment to fall apart. I know you've now gotten married and all of that, but do you find that moment to fall apart, to sit with Lebo and have a conversation with God and find a place to then start building a well of healing for yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it had to happen because after my granddad's death, which was by the end of the year 2018, when they died with a huge chunk of me. Like I was proper depressed.
Yeah.
And that was like a kick into my 30s.
Yeah.
And I was so broken. And I had to find a way to make it work because I know they wouldn't want me to feel like that.
Yeah.
I know they would want me to live on and not dwell on their passing. So I had to find a way, and that's when my healing process started.
Yeah.
But like I say, with death, and I think this has been recurring throughout my story.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't say it, but I think you can pick up the themes of support. You need support.
Yeah.
So I had been greatly blessed with support.
Yeah.
Like I have very close family members.
Yes.
My dad's side of the family, he's got a really large.
So they came to...
they were really supportive. My mom's side of the family is also a very big family. That's the family I grew up in. So they really embraced me as well. Yeah. Cousins, as well have really, 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 really played a big role.
So for somebody who doesn't have that, right? I mean, there are people who don't have big support structures. And there's almost there's that moment before you go to bed, and the one before you and sleeping. And that's where the aha moment where you are by yourself.
By yourself.
What's that thing that picks you up?
God.
Okay. So this is in prayer then?
Yes. For me, it's definitely God. And I wouldn't have been able to do it because, like you're saying, at the end of the day, that support goes away.
Yeah.
Or not goes away.
And people, then life continues.
Life continues. People go back to their lives naturally as they should. And Luena, you are stuck with this void now. Oh my God, they're gone. Life has to continue. Yes. And I need to still show up as Lebo.
Yes.
Which is now, it started to feel tiring.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying, I'm carrying this burden of pain. So much pain that I still have to show up as Lebo.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you show up as Lebo. And I want to unbolt something a little bit because there's a conversation here happening.
Yes.
There's something moving, right? You want to show up as Lebo. Yes, you're carrying the pain. I want to, for somebody watching or somebody going through a loss or periods of loss. Yes, there is, you must get down on your knees and just talk to God. And that's the only person you talk to. And the challenge with that is sometimes people then are held in very challenging spaces and they don't really voice out. I wondered whether you journaled or you saw a therapist or what is that thing additionally work? I'm not saying that getting down on your knees and praying doesn't work. But is there other
mechanisms yes.
that you use to be able to get better?
Yes, I did. I did eventually seek therapy because I'm older now. When we were growing up, therapy was very like, depressed young. Chabana ba hona tje ke depression yang relating so re phela. But now that I'm full blown I had to seek therapy. I definitely did seek therapy and just trying to navigate how do I now deal with this by myself. It's a now a label problem, and at this point, my siblings are grown. They're dealing with it in their own way. I mean, everyone grieves differently. We can be from the same womb, but we all grieved differently, very differently. That loss is different. Yes. I mean, people meant what they meant to people differently. So now I needed to focus on Lebo and making sure Lebo is okay and let everyone grieve on their own. So therapy did help a bit.
Not altogether?
No.
Okay. So it's a continuous process.
It's a continuous process. And, it was more of a conversation I had to have with myself. I figured another person can't, I'm not, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying therapy doesn't work. Therapy does work. But for me at that time, I felt, me having a conversation or divulging my feelings to another person was not helping me.
Okay. I often think a lot about the Fix My Life stuff that we watch that are there, and we talk about them, and we talk about loss, we talk about pain. We talk about how we journey through it. I'd like to talk about how we rise.
My favorite part.
I like to talk about how we rise.
Yeah.
Because in the depths of despair, in any other time in history, you will always find that despair has happened, but something comes out of that. And also how we progress in life. There's almost that thing that we go through. I always talk about going through stuff and not overcoming, right?
Yes.
So let's talk through how you rise. Because I think that's the, out of the ashes.
Yes. My favorite.
So let's go.
That's how I see myself. As a phoenix. Sure. What a liberating feeling.
Yeah.
When that moment comes, when you realize, okay, I have to run, I have to rise, and fly. Because what leads me to rise is to remember what the ones that I've lost would want for me.
100%.
And me staying in that pain feels like I'm disappointing them.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I have this vision of how it looks like, where they're all sitting in a group on some. You know when people watch soccer?
Yes. Man's about, hey! Yeah.
You better kick that ball. I feel like, now up there, they're watching us and saying, even with the decisions we make, oh my word, they're looking at me like, why did you make that decision? But anyway, whatever, as we move along, so that's how I actually, navigate through it, because I always want to make them proud.
Yes.
Whether they're here or not, like they must always be proud of me. Yes, of course, there are certain decisions I make in life where I feel they're looking at me like, where did you learn that from, Wena? And I'm sitting here thinking, it's my way, and you loved me regardless. So this is my way, Signalona. So let us support the ancestors more. Kagadi decision is wrong. It's fine. This is mine. And I'll make it through. But in my process of making it through, even in when they're not around, I still consider how they would have reacted. So I still sit and say, hey, it's just that there's a whole group now I have to consider.
That you have to consider.
But and it's exhausting. But my grandparents are my anchors.
Yes.
And surely my parents know that. There's a hierarchy here. Grandparents was then born. Now they know because those people were with me my entire life, and they knew Lebohang, the child, and Lebohang, the grown-up.
Yes.
So naturally, and they left last.
Yes.
So naturally, I navigate towards them first when I think about things. So, hey, what would my grandparents want? Especially if it's a hard decision.
Yes.
I say, what would they want for me? And I remember, okay, this is what they would want for me. And then I still have to go back and say, what does Lebo want for herself? And then that's where the two have to marry. And then that's how I navigate through life.
Position, right? To have these two things that propel you yourself.
Yes.
Sort of not living, there is the past, there is who they were, what they meant.
Yes.
And then taking forward who you are.
Yes.
And finding that marriage between yourself
yes.
and where you come from.
Eh.
And the value in that, I guess, is also remembering that while you're defined by the people you come from, is also defining yourself as you move forward.
Absolutely.
And not being held hostage, perhaps, by loss, by the fact that they're not here. And I've listened to your narrative and how you've said it. What you've said is, in the beginning, you said they left me. But now you're speaking of that they are with me.
Yes.
And that's the shift.
Yes.
In how you then navigate the loss.
Yes.
It's to shift and see where you want to be.
Absolutely. And that's where the healing starts. The healing starts when you say, okay, they are gone, but I carry them with me. And I'll be okay. Yeah. They've given me the tools of the trade. How? You know, a person's, it's like being coached by someone. You know, the coach, he coaches you for months, and when it's time to go play, he's not there with you. Like, he's kicking in the air. Because at the end of the day, you are there on your own, and he's already given you as much as he can, as much as he knows. So naturally, you should just grab from then and run with it. And there will still be that essence of you in it. That requires you to do it in your way, which is a stardom way. So, that's where the phoenix comes in to say, okay, I've already had the tools of the trade. I have God's support. And, you know, I've developed as a woman as well as a person. I'm not the same Lebo I was before the loss, and which is also very important. You need to understand that pain changes you.
It does.
It changes you. So as much as I need to show up as Lebo, I need to now figure out who this Lebo is. The Lebo now in the situation. I'm not the Lebo that I was then. Right? And I need to be okay with that label and how label deals with things and how label navigates, and hope that they are proud of that label, and just ensure that the character traits that they taught me are still really coming through to build the label that I'm meant to be.
Okay. So Phoenix is bird, right? They rise, they implode into fire.
Yes.
Do we also accept that while healing happens, things will happen again in life?
Absolutely.
And what you say then, pain changes you. Could we then move from that and say, because you know it, you know how to prepare for it? Can you prepare for it?
No.
No.
You can never prepare. I'll give you another example. Just this weekend, we're burying a friend. I lost a friend. And she died a sudden death. You know, I mean, she was fine. And she just collapsed, and that was it. So, and her death still shocked me. You know, there's this notion that you think, okay, you know, I've been through pain so much. Death, death. No, it always sneaks in, comes like a thief. And steals your joy. So there is never a time you can you can never get used to death. It'll still hit as hard. And then again you start, depending on how close you were to the person, then you start to navigate through that life. And with her death, I've learned, you have to live your life to the full.
I remember you were afraid to turn your courage. You know, we obviously have spoken a lot about, you know, turning this age. I mean, you're in your 30s.
Yes.
And it's the sort of same time your mom passed away, right? There's been a fear about it.
Yes.
And here you are. So tell me how you feel.
So that was actually in the top 5 of one of my biggest fears. Growing up, I always thought, life stops at that age. You know, I just had that fear of it. Yeah, that age she was when she died. Well, I get there. Let's start there, you know. Because I don't think, you know, once you've experienced loss like that, you don't want to outlive your mother. Or it's never like...
You don't see life beyond where she ended.
Yeah.
For yourself.
Yes. And I've actually picked up that trend recently on TikTok somewhere, and I was like, so I'm not alone. I actually thought this was my own delusional thinking. But I picked up on a lot of people. It's a thing. That my mom died when she was 21. I'm 31. And I outlived her. It's so weird for me. So that's when I realized, it's actually... It's a thing that most people that have experienced motherly loss go through. Or fatherly. Hey?
Lost at a young age?
Yes.
Yes. Where your mom was.
So I always had that fear, and I turned that age this year.
Okay.
And it was so hard for me. Because I was like, oh my word, what am I going to do?
But you're afraid to fall asleep after
No, I was afraid to what needs to happen. Because you know, like we spoke about natural adulting challenges as well.
Yes.
You know, I've been having my fair share of that.
Natural
adulting.
Yes.
Ugh, my God, it's so exhausting. And you know, I've just been tired, like, and now this age comes, you know, and I'm like, now, oh God, what now?
Yes.
And one thing I ask from God is just, it has to be phenomenal on her behalf, because her life was cut so short. I'm no more now. You know, it's a bit weird. You know, because when she was that age, was my mother. So sorry. But her peers or people older than her were like, she died at such a young age. But now that I'm that age, it's like, she was really young. She was and she still had so much to live for. So literally I've dedicated this year to her memory, and just making sure that I saw through all my challenges and not let them weigh me down, and just live and make the best out of my life.
So it begs the idea that everybody's got a path to walk, right? And there isn't a limitation to where you need to walk. Whether her age was stopped then, it was a time for her, and your time is different in a different way, right? But I remember, like, for me, there was when I was a kid, there's a friend of mine who passed away who was 9, and I was always afraid of the dark after that. And I grew up to be an adult who was always thinking death is going to arrive at some place. I think when I turned 25, 35, I'm over 40 now, and I think I'm still here, and there are people but everybody's got that journey to make of their own. And you've been able to traverse that and change careers, I'm assuming, as you grow older and become better at your craft, right? And maybe to speak to that a little bit in terms of the things that make you tick, the ones that make you wake up in the morning and scream to the world, yes. What are those drivers that you now, at this age, that perhaps your mom wouldn't have been seeing had it been at her time, that changes for you?
Sure. Like I said, definitely my work is a big part of that, as a brand strategist and an event manager, and you know, production and content. You know, like, I'm a creative, but as much as I'm a creative, I'm also a strategist. Like, I plan and I strategize and I think far. Okay, you see, as a mustard seed, this is how it will blossom into something great. But in the interim, how do we get it there? Which is what I do. So that and the answer that I had before the question, that I just made a decision to live beyond my problems, beyond my challenges or whatever things that I'm going through, which is a hard decision, as you would know, with adulting. It weighs you down so much. There are certain trials that weigh you down that you've never been through and never thought you'd have to navigate, and they just happen. And then, which is where the depression comes in and all those other, feelings that we shouldn't really celebrate or, acknowledge.
It's important to acknowledge.
I mean, it is important to acknowledge, but it's also very important to acknowledge that you have to live with them. And live through them.
Or live through them.
Yes.
I think that's important.
Yes, we need to live through them. We can't, it's what I tell my peers and my friends as well. We can't dwell on the challenges of life.
Yeah.
Life will always have challenges. Yeah. Literally, break from a challenge. Like, it's like traffic on the on the highway. Like, there's never a time unless you drive at 3 a.m. But guess who's gonna be there waiting? The metro.
Yeah,
like, there's always a challenge. And what I also realized that we don't do in our adulthood is time flies by right through, like so fast. And then you realize that you've been dwelling with your problems, that you've done absolutely nothing with your life. Like,
misery loves company.
And who fitile 5 years and all you've done is cry and mourn and you realize, oh my God, now I have to get that time back. You can't. You just have to soldier forward. So that is why Nekere, it's important for us to live through those trials, because they will while how to navigate and the solution. It's a maze, right? And what's amazing, it means so within that, we have to find a way to live our lives and have fun and feel great and do great things and achieve things, and achieve beyond the I woke up and I slept. That's God's job. Yeah. I've learned that's I see I can jump in the in-between. It's up to me, but him waking me up and letting me sleep, that's on him. So we cannot be fighting this whole adulthood concept so hard that we forget to live the life that he has given us.
So for me is, I think we become based on where we come from. I mean, you talk about being a strategist. You talk about being creative. You talk about overcoming or going through things, right? But the sum total of our lives is really born out of where we come from and the experiences that we have. But the mind shift of what you want to become. If you're defined by the challenges, I mean, being an adult is a general standard operating procedure. Everybody has to go through it, right? Even our grandparents. Conditions are different because the economies of scale are different. The tech is different. Life is different.
The social landscape
is different, right? But for every day you don't spend underground is an achievement. And I think that's the most important thing. And what I almost, when I got to know you and speak to you and where you've come from and how much you've had to lift and also hold space for yourself and hold space for others. That's the most fundamental part about the phoenixes that rise, right? It's the fact that for every day there's an opportunity to make an impact and make a change and take the gap and choose to not be defined by the losses, but by the triumphs of showing up and turning your mom's age, right? And then celebrating this year as her year, or remembering your grandmother and the fact that it's almost her birthday, right? Tomorrow. And remembering that, and then remembering the fact that you've got siblings that also hold space for you and you hold space for them. And perhaps what is also great is that it hasn't made you become dependent on pain. You know, there are people who say, who did you become before the pain changed you?
Yes.
Who were you before the pain
Yes.
changed you? For me, it's almost like there's a beauty in, while the pain's there, it's polished you to get there, right? To be a different person and to rise.
Yes.
And Lebo, you know, today, I really want to thank you for talking to me, because what it does is it gives a story of hope. And perhaps for those that also look at that same TikTok, right? And have the same story as you or that, but also for young ones that come behind who faced loss. And loss is different. It's not just death. There's also loss of agency or loss of self or loss, but loss in its very nature. And you're saying there's an opportunity to rise out of it and to define yourself while being held space for by those who came before you.
Absolutely.
That is actually such a story of triumph.
Thank you so much for having me.
Black Pod, the podcast for everyday people. They always talk about Jesus rising from the grave. He lived his own life and found his own rise in metaphors that, you know, he went off to heaven and to sit on the right side of God. You find your right side of life in terms of how you navigate, whether you rise from loss, whether you rise from situations that are difficult for you. Always find your middle center. And we will always continue to tune in to hear from everyday people telling their stories of triumph. And if you do not like and subscribe, you're going to miss out, man. Like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube and on TikTok. There is Black Alexis. Follow me. Hear more from us. Shop.